Week 5 lecture. And I want to warn you guys, next week, week 6 is going to look different. I'm warning you. Be prepared. Be ready to receive a different kind of week. So today I'm going to talk about the diary. And not so much keeping a diary, but diaristic writing. I see it as a kind of mode of writing in creation of a form of writing that is meant to be shared with others. It's the form of the diary or the notebook or the journal. Some examples that are sort of famous examples. One of my favorite diaries is The Diary of a Young Girl by Anne Frank. That book is beautiful. Historically speaking, it goes way back. I mean, and this isn't way back, but the 10th century, the very famous Japanese courtesan Sei Shonagon wrote a beautiful diary about Japanese court life in the 10th century. There's also Samuel Pepys, who was an English politician of the 18th century. Joseph Joubert, who was a wonderful notebook writer, again, 18th century French writer. People have been keeping notebooks for years. And, of course, the notebook or the diary, some people keep it for themselves. It's just for themselves, and that's certainly a quality of the work, that it's the self speaking to the self. But a lot of people who keep notebooks also have it in their mind that the entries they're creating are also meant for others, even if it may not happen in their lifetime. So the diary is really a form of writing. I see it that way. You'll notice that it sort of immediately established this kind of voyeur relationship between the writer and the reader. The reader, in other words, is sort of looking over the shoulder of the writer at something that he or she is usually not privy to. There's a sense that, the diary writer is really speaking privately and even entering into sort of some unspoken territory. And then the reader gets to hear that. So it's sort of like gossiping. It has a sort of gossip quality. We're getting some very private ruminations. And so the reader is immediately implicated too, because the reader is choosing to look over the shoulder. And so that's a very important part of the diary as a form. I'm going to just talk about some other qualities. My hand's kind of getting tired here. It's like I need a frame or something. I need some sort of holder. Maybe somebody can build that for me. Jake or Tim, Rachel, anyone have any carpentry skills? Build some sort of frame so I can just hold the screen. Anyway. Okay. Here are some qualities of diaristic writing. One of the reasons why we are approaching it in this class is that entries often, but not always, are short. And those short entries can stand alone. So they often have some sort of revelation of complexity, some sort of surprise in terms of revealing a different aspect of the speaker. And yet those short entries, or long entries too, it's not just short entries, all of the entries together certainly can accumulate into something larger, all right, in a way that Maggie Nelson's book does. A diary is really often about identity. It's about who is the self, and who is the, more specifically, who is the divided self. And you really see a lot of sort of self-warring going on. The diary, the self in the diary entries trying to work something out about his or her identity. You see that in John Cheever's diaries especially. He's this sort of suburban, loves the pastoral, loves his family, and yet he's got this sort of secret desire for men, and he's got a drinking problem, which he talks about all the time. So that's the diary is about figuring out who the divided self is. Who is the self inside as compared to the self that is on the outside, that is the way other people are perceiving the self. What does it mean to feel divided in this way, but also then to have to be a father or a mother, etc.? Diaries are meant to their central timeline is the present moment out of which they are composed. The writer is looking at him or herself in the present moment. They often take up very ordinary subject matter, what we do habitually, day after day. And then there might be some shift in an entry where the ordinary breaks into the extraordinary, where the habitual is broken by something very irrational or very normal, but extraordinary, like death, right? Like separation, like loss. One way to think about them, it's a pretty easy way to think about them, is it's the writer, the self working through problems. The writing is meant to serve as a sort of space to work through something, to attempt to understand it. So in that way, the diary feels a lot like the essay. But not always, like the Cahun diary that I gave you. That's a very poetic diary. And so she's working through things through image, through very fragmented statements.